peux passer d'abord. Tu me dis quand tu commences?
Ça a commencé.
Je peux passer d'abord.
Hello everyone. Hi. So I see a lot of members have joined for the session. So we will just start our session today. So before we start the session, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Anvesha Shah. Currently, I'm working as an integrated delivery manager at Techno Exponent. Techno Exponent being a leading technology company, and we are known for our expertise in building custom AI solutions, as well as providing 360-degree IT services. We also have a large team, which is our in-house engineers. It is almost 400 plus. So let's talk about today's topic. Very exciting and I'm very excited to know more insights from you guys as well. So today's topic, and today we are here to discuss the exciting and ever evolving world of AI in education. And the topic for the day is the transformative power of AI in education. We are really honored that we have such a fantastic panel of experts with us today. And before I begin with the panel introduction and proceed further, I would like to thank each one of you for sparing your valuable time for us, and you're ready to share your knowledge and insights with us. So thank you so much for joining this session. And let us start with the introduction of the panel, and then we will proceed further accordingly. So let me introduce the panel first. So I'll start introducing one by one. So Trisha Bloom, she's the founder and president of AI Governance Group. Apart from that, she's also a strategic advisor and public speaker. Hi. Then we have Jennifer Dilleland Lim. She's the CEO and co-founder of Imagine AI Future. Hi. Then we have Dr. Dawn Mary Fischera. She's a speaker and educator of AI in education. She's also pursued her studies on AI in education from University of Pennsylvania. Then we have Farida Masuddi. She's the CEO of Al Fateh Technologies Co. LLC. Hi. Then we have Michael Hausman. He's the founder and CEO of AI Accelerator. Then we have Dr. Shumi Singh. She's the founder of Generative Artificial Intelligence Lab. Then we have Stevie Rim. He's the director of product marketing at Zero Error Systems Private Limited. Then we have Dilip D. He's the chief AI product officer at Lighthouse 3. Then we have Ed. He is the chief learning scientist at Covexa. Then we have Subhash R. He's the founder, product manager, and GTM, generative AI of Thinkverse, which was formerly known as Learny AI. Then we have Shubhrata Chatterjee. He's the founder and CEO of Logicflow. Then we have Grigory Kennedy. He is the brain behind the development of Mindful Monk AI chat app, and he's also into LLM optimization. Last but not the least, we also have Sharik Shah. He's the Chief Executive Officer and founder at Advisor.ai. Thank you so much, everyone, once again for joining on this session. So before we proceed further, I would like to apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name. And in case I have missed out anybody's name, please feel free to introduce yourself. So did I miss anyone's name? You can
Not
raise
sure
your
if
hand.
it was me.
Oh, okay. Hi, sorry if I missed your name. Can you introduce yourself to the panel?
Sure. So I'm Sam Saarinen. I do research in AI and education, and I do consulting for mid-size ed tech firms and universities.
All right. Thank you so much for your introduction. So, all right then. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody else's name? All right. I guess I have covered everyone. So let us move forward. So just to have a more constructive form of conversation during this roundtable, I thought of that we will go by this conversation flow. So we will start off with the exploration of the area of personalized learning with the help of AI-powered educational tools. And then slowly we will transition into discussing the area of AI in grading and assessments. And finally, we will conclude our session on the segment of how we can prepare our students for an AI-driven future. As during this journey, I will invite each panelist to share their point of view on today's topic, and by asking, as I call it, a curiosity question, which you have to answer. And then, of course, because it's a live session, so we will take some questions from the audience also in between. And that question can be addressed by anyone from the panel, whoever is willing to take that question to answer to the audience. And lastly, we will conclude on the key takeaways from this session and the final thoughts from all of you. So without further ado, let's jump into the topic. As an AI enthusiast myself, I have been closely monitoring the power of AI in the education space. And I feel indeed artificial intelligence or AI has rapidly become a transformative force in education. Having said that, let us dive into our first segment, which is the personalized learning segment that we are planning to explore in this session. So let me start with my curiosity question. So my first question goes to Jennifer Delilan. Hi. I have a question for you specifically.
Yes.
So how do you define personalized learning? And what role do you think AI-powered educational tools play in enhancing this concept?
I feel like personalized education is meaning we are giving a personalized user experience for each student. And AI facilitates the transition by introducing more gamification, more attractive design. And also we are currently facing more I feel like my students are more into it because they have more fun, more intention in involving, because we have 30% of openness in courses before, and now that AI is involved, we have 70% of open courses.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Would anybody like to add anything to the question I raised to Jen?
Sure,
All right.
I'll add something.
Sure.
One additional piece around personalization is that AI can take into account the person's or the student's ability and sort of their learning pace. Like if they have the access to that history of how the student's been performing,
Hmm.
AI can tailor those experiences for the student to keep pace with their learning ability, which I think is very important in today's world because every student, as we know, learns at a different pace. And so, unfortunately, in a classroom setting, it often becomes like everybody, it's being taught at one pace for everybody. And some students might struggle, some might find it catch up quickly. AI allows for that the personalization aspect of it allows tailoring of that experience to the student's capability.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dilip, for adding your point of view as well to the question. And thank you, Jen, for answering it beautifully. So I would like to invite the next panelist, Trisha Bloom. Hi, hi. And I have a specific question to you. This is my curiosity question. Could you share some examples of how AI-powered tools that are currently making a significant impact in the personalized learning space, and how? What is your take on it?
Oh, I think it's really an exciting time right now. AI powered tools are literally coming online. I wouldn't say daily, I'd say probably hourly at this point. And there are some, what we're going to call, I'm going to say old tools that are still doing really exciting things. So like there's, Khan Academy is always done really interesting and exciting things, but now with AI doing even more so. So I think it's important that we don't look at just what's the new, brightest, shiniest tool, but how maybe, and I'm using the word old or, mature tools might provide great expertise based on their experience and the added power of AI. I think the same goes for some of those more traditional learning tools, like McGraw-Hill or, any of those old, what we call textbook companies that now also offer AI and individualized learning platforms. And so I think it really is an opportunity for school districts, universities, charter schools to explore the best ed tech available to them that is aligning with their needs and privacy requirements and ethics.
Absolutely. I agree. In fact, I was exploring Khan Academy. I have been using it for quite some time now. And the way they have incorporated AI so beautifully with the platform and, giving a new horizon to the students who are already learning on that platform seems very exciting to me as a learner, always a curious learner, to explore such a powerful solution at such a high, fast-paced release, if I talk about. So, would anybody would like to add anything on Trisha's wonderful answer? All right. So,
Just one thing, I feel like AI delayed complexity between the people who knows how to use tools and people who doesn't know. So I feel like it's excited because I have so many students of many age. I have adults, children, and I feel that we can bring a new way to do education thanks to AI.
that is indeed, that is true. I think the bridge between people who are really not into the tech space accessing those tools and people who are on a daily basis, like I belong from the IT industry. I on a daily basis use a lot of IT tools, but I think the more this gap has been bridged, I think it will transform our lives even more. Definitely. Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Yeah.
I'll just jump in. I think I'm seeing a lot of movement in technology, kind of open online courses, but I
Hmm.
still think so. You have these kind of bifurcated world. You have universities and colleges that I think are largely really not leaning into these changes, right? I went to not to,
Right.
went to Harvard for undergrad, and I remember going to a lecture hall with 400 people, and it's this incredibly one size fits all approach that's like stodgy. This is not a good way to learn. And now you have this one-to-one hyper personalized, hyper customized education that's being made available through these online open courses like Khan Academy. I'm sure we all saw that demo that was kind of mind blowing from OpenAI. And so I guess what I wonder, no question, those tools are getting more robust. What I'm interested in seeing is, do universities start to recognize the writing on the wall that, like, hey, maybe we're going to get disrupted. Maybe, and there's a credentialization that happens in your traditional university, so maybe they don't have any reason to worry because the US News and World Report rankings are never really going to change. We all know that. But for me, that's interesting. Is like, will they disrupt the traditional university? Because there's no question you can get as good and probably a better education through a Khan Academy. And so that's it's moving. And I think technology providers are adopting, but I wonder if the brick and mortar universities
Yeah.
lean in, or if they just say, you know what, we've been doing this for 400 years. We have no reason to change.
That is so rightly said. So true. Thank you so much, Michael, for adding a point as well. So I would move on with the discussion, and thank you so much for all of your active participation in the session. So I would request Farida. Hi, can you hear me? So
Yeah, hi.
hi. So I have a curiosity question for you as well. So I have gone through your LinkedIn profile, and you have an extensive experience in the field of AI in education, and wanted to know what is your insight on what are the primary benefits of AI used for personalized learning, both for students as well as educators. What is your point of view on this?
See, as someone put up in the earlier question also, that the main advantage of using AI in personalized learning is the model for adaptive learning, because every student has their own pace. Here we are talking about some students who might be really weak and some students who have an extra edge. Now, what happens in the traditional teaching forms is that there is one large audience and the teacher cannot give personalized attention. So it's just that I have to teach this is what I do, and it goes across everybody. Someone might take time, someone might grasp it easily, but it's the same for everyone. With AI coming into picture, I can, the students who are slightly above average, who are able to grasp, I can give them more complex, more difficult questions, which would, give them that extra edge, or which would even give them that challenge kind of a situation. And for students who are taking time, of course, it would be better if they go at a slower pace. So that is one factor which, where adaptive learning can be used. Again, for teachers also, as we had someone saying this, that would the traditional methods change, or would they continue with what they are, or would they replace something like Khan Academy, or vice versa? See, I think now we are at a stage where we have to come into a collaboration, because AI is not going to go away. It's going to remain as it is. I am also an educator. I teach students, and I teach programming also. And I have seen, students just go to an AI tool, type in the question, copy paste, show us the result. We as teachers, we are as educators know that this is not from them, because we know the capacity of a student and what kind of caliber they have. So definitely that is something that it has to be a blend, where I always encourage my students that there's nothing wrong in using it, but don't use it for copy paste. Use it as a tool for learning. If you don't understand something, ask. Maybe it will give you a better understanding, give you some more relative examples. So that will make it all the more better. Like, I was reading about this tool called as Edwin, which is used specifically, which was used by students from Japan and some other countries for learning English. And it is a complete AI-based tool which works on natural language processing. So I think such tools definitely, give, even Duolingo for that matter, they are really very good tools which can be used for everybody across, and they give you a very powerful edge, and also give you that personalized learning.
Right. In fact, talking about Duolingo, I was using it for a brief amount of time. I wanted to learn Spanish, and I
Yeah,
think the application is amazing. I mean, the interface, starting from the journey, for a person who is, new to learning a language,
absolute beginner. Yes,
it's a delight. It's a delight
absolutely.
completely. Although I dropped off in between, but definitely, I think if I pursue that, it will be one of my go-to places to learn Spanish or any other language for that matter.
Absolutely. Because I've been using it to learn Arabic myself, and I really absolutely love it.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights on the question I asked. And if
Most
from the panel, anybody else would like to add anything to what Farida said?
Yeah,
I
I
will,
think. Go ahead.
yes, you can. No, you can go.
Anybody?
Uh, just a quick thing is
Yeah.
that the AI, the adaptive learning, I feel like that's going to become a lifelong learning capability,
Mm,
and that's where I think institutions as well as other like traditional universities need to think about is
mm,
how do you keep a student up to date with skills and knowledge that they need to acquire over their lifetime.
mm,
And right now, I think that's the things that's missing. Like Duolingo, as you said, has started
mm,
doing that very effectively and doing it
mm,
to a point where you'll continue to learn, use it throughout for a long period of time to learn new languages. Similarly, how do you now teach skills as different point in their students' life cycle or lifetime, not even life cycle, lifetime, that can be then tailored to their learning capabilities.
Thank you so
That's
much.
a bigger sort of AI capability that's not been explored yet.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding that part. I think Jen and Michael also wanted to add points. Please go ahead.
Yes, one or two things. First of all, we need to warn students that there is tool in order to detect if the text and the video is generated by AI, so we know that it's not from him. And second thing, above all, I think it's pretty cool that we have human students that function differently. Some are auditive, some are picture memories or texting memories. So we are facing a new way to learn how to do human and mind mapping in order to help them to improve their knowledge. Thanks to AI, I feel like it's more efficient because we can, from a text, generate images, and from images, creating a valuable text in order to increase the knowledge of our students.
Right. Absolutely. In fact, I believe, like, this is my own subjective opinion, of course, that with AI coming into the picture, what has become easy for me, if I talk on a very user standpoint, is that I can get the quick nuances very quickly, but I can build up on that and do something beyond what I could do just as a human, like, thinking from my mind, jotting down certain points, and then giving an answer to it. So that quality of the answer I could produce with the help of AI and my brain blending it together produces even better as results. But of course, yes, users have to learn how to utilize it in the right fashion, how you can utilize it to go beyond than your capability. That is that's the end goal which AI is trying to achieve. Yes.
Exactly.
So Michael, you wanted to add anything?
Yeah, man, just it was the point was made earlier. These are tools like any other that we kind of need to teach people how to engage with. Like 40 years ago, the electric calculator emerged, and there were actually people forget there were articles that people said, "Oh, we got to get this out of classrooms. Like this is terrible. People aren't going to learn arithmetic."
Right.
And the truth is, like, you can do what you want in the classroom, but it's a tool that's going to be available in the workplace once
Yeah.
someone leaves school. So, my take is, why don't we teach students to engage with these tools, how to brainstorm? Like we all know there's a skill set in and of itself around leveraging Gen AI tools. And there's a zillion prompt engineering courses. And now there's more and more data analysis that can be done use these tools. So it's like the electric calculator and any other skill set, right? It's a workplace relevant skill that everyone should learn.
Absolutely. And coming back to you only, I have a question for you directly, which I wanted to ask you. What do you think? What are some of the current challenges or limitations, like an elaborated approach from your point of view, that using AI in personalized learning, and what are the ways that we can overcome this? It's a question for you, Michael.
Oh, sorry, give me that again. I cut out. Sorry.
Oh, sure. I'll repeat myself. So the question
Yeah.
for you is, what are some of the current challenges or limitations, according
Yeah.
to you, of course, using AI in personalized learning, and what are the ways we can actually overcome it?
Yeah. Yeah, and some of it, look, teaching people to do things in a different way is always challenging. And I struggle with that with clients that I engage with, where when we do technology implementations, it's often not the technology that's the challenge. It's the teaching people how to leverage these tools and kind of lean into them, right? That's always the difficulty. I'm an interim CTO at a company. We have a team of developers. Copilot Chat's a game changer. I was shocked at how hard it was to get people to change their usual workflows. So I think even in education, I think the good news is these tools are getting increasingly embedded into the tools we use. So it's almost like it's in the background, right? It's almost like it's smarter, but the interface hasn't changed that much. But I do think part of what you had mentioned, Anwisha, was teaching people these AI skills. And that is hard, right? It is hard to say to someone, no, you don't go to a word processor. You have to collaborate with ChatGPT or Claude, or you're going to have to kind of brainstorm and interact with this thing. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge from my perspective, is just changing human behavior, which tends to be very, very rigid.
Agreed. And
I agree.
yeah. Anybody would like to add anything?
Yes.
Yeah, please, sure.
I think that there are, especially in education, there are privacy concerns, right? And equity and access issues, right? We learned a lot, unfortunately, during the pandemic around the great digital divide. And we'd like to say that we've made it smaller, but I think, in fact, certainly with the advent of AI and the folks that have the finances to have those tools and to implement them into schools, different school districts, different universities, it really will become more and more an equity and access issue. And then, like I mentioned, we have data privacy concerns, of course, as well, all the way around.
Yes, absolutely. I think Edward would like to add something as well. Hi, you can
So,
hear us?
yeah, I can hear you just fine. Thank you. So a couple things. The first thing that I'd like to point out is what David Perkins years ago regarded as the fingertip effect, which is the idea that a novice who steps in front of a technology can use it to the same extent and the same level as an expert. And Michael, when you talked about the idea of people coming to a technology, if you are a novice and you are sitting in front of a word processor, you're not going to hammer out a novel. There's a lot of background knowledge and experience that are necessary in order to even be able to begin to fully utilize a tool. And with a calculator, it's the idea that the human offloads some of the responsibility, the executive function, to the technology to allow it to do what it does best. But in order to retain learner agency, we need the ability for the learner to pull back the responsibility. And when they declare a statement or a fact, they realize that it's not the responsibility of technology to get it right. It's the responsibility of the human to verify and validate. The other kind of big idea I wanted to put out to the group is the idea that as an educator who's used educational technologies now for almost 30 years, I think there are at least two broad classes of using AI in education, and there's a tension between them. One is for the purpose of instruction. So Khan Academy, more Khan Academy, Duolingo, pushing information out to students, give more quizzes, more multiple choice, and so forth. But that's only in the service of doing things better, right? It's efficiency, it's doing it faster. But there's a flip side, and that's doing better things. So, what I've heard less from the conversation so far is the idea of empowering people, learners, all ages. And I really appreciate the comment made by Dilip about the idea of lifelong learning. This idea of utilizing the tools to solve local challenges and global problems, not just as individuals, but as communities. Young people know what troubles are facing us in the future. And if we only push instructionism in their direction, they will be ill-equipped to be the leaders that we need in the near and long-term future.
Right. I think Sharik has raised his hand as well. You would like to add anything?
Yeah, there are a lot of points, and I just wanted to go back to what Farida had mentioned a little while ago about, you know, adaptive learning and giving more difficult in terms of challenges that we're going to face, right? And for me, I would love to build, I'm a builder, so I would love to build something that adapts to the student and gives problem solving questions to students that are really on top of it, and give like fact retrieval and conceptual understanding questions to students who are just in the process of learning. But then I believe Trisha mentioned something about like equity and equality, and adaptive learning is phenomenal, but then making it fair and making it equal and not incentivizing, essentially sandbagging yourself as a student is kind of a balance that I don't have a solution for quite yet. And the topic was about challenges that we're facing and how we would solve them. But I know the challenge, I don't know how to solve it yet. So I would love to, mention that and see if anybody has some insight there.
I think Farida already has an insight to talk about. Yeah, Farida, you can go ahead.
So one thing, again, coming back to your question, first of all, about the challenges, one challenge also is that AI is biased, because depending on what we search for, it kind of creates a pattern and it will show you results based on that. So the authenticity again over here is a question mark. And coming back to the question, the thing that Sharik was just mentioning about, how this could be done or how this can be done. Again, as I would say, maybe a platform, because we can train AI. For example, even if you talk about Chat GPT, depending on the kind of questions that you regularly post, after some time, you will see that the answers are very trained to the kind of things or the kind of information that you're putting in. So maybe if that kind of a platform is created where, you're constantly putting something about the student, what are the interest levels, what is the kind of difficulty levels that the student is used to, what kind of challenges he or she likes to cater to regularly, I think the model would slowly develop itself, and give you those kind of personalized learning options. I think that can be done very soon.
That is an interesting insight. So true. I think, yeah, the biasness, you are right on this, because even in human, just to add a point to it, even in the human space also, people who have a particular way of thinking or a opinion on certain subject matter, which they have expertise on, they have a vision to it, or they have an opinion to it, which they want to stick to. So that biasness can also definitely come into the AI as well, because constantly there is a conversation happening from a one person, and that AI is trying to cater to that person in a way. So definitely there is a point of view of that as well. Yeah, Edward would like to add something.
Yeah, so there's a wonderful colleague who I've worked with, and she's a former AWS employee. And she tells this very famous story
Okay.
of when the Alexa was first introduced. And the vice president at AWS was up on stage, and there were hundreds of people in the audience. And the vice president was from the United States, but had a very deep Southern accent. And she was so excited to release the Alexa, this voice activated assistant. And so she spoke to it, and it didn't understand her, like at all. And so she tried again and again and again. And so I think this notion of bias has multiple layers to it. It's not just where did the data set come from that was used to train the model, but there's also who is in the room in making choices about what is included or excluded in the development of the model. And then the cycle of who is there to validate and make sure that the model is working appropriately for the user group. And so when we think of bias, I think that there is at the algorithm stage and then upstream implications, like where did the data come from and how did you create it? But then also downstream implications. How is it being utilized? Remember that validity has two sides of the same coin. The first is best practices in the creation, but then the flip side is how is the information that comes from whatever the tool is utilized? Is it interpreted properly or misinterpreted?
Thank you so much, Edward, for adding this point. Now that we are almost towards the end of our first segment, where we explored and discussed various nuances of personalized learning through various AI powered educational tools. So, audience also has an interesting question for our panel. So, what audience is asking is, how do we envision that AI will evolve to further enhance personalized learning in education? What is our take on this? So, anybody would like to address this question, please feel free to add. Yes, Sam, please go ahead.
So weighing in here, there's a technological side, but then there's also an educational side. Up to this point in education, we've largely seen existing general purpose technologies being kind of wrapped around and then repackaged for education, as opposed to education-specific technologies being deployed. Obviously, there's a range of hybrids between those two extremes, but one of the things that I think we'll see a lot more of as time goes on is that we'll see more education-specific models. And I don't just mean like fine-tuning LLMs for education. I also mean the emergence of new architectures for representing certain kinds of latent data inference. As an example, assessments, psychometrics have a population of models that are fairly simplistic from machine learning points of view, but are also very distinct from the kinds of models that are traditionally being used in, or maybe I should say currently being used in AI for education. I think in the future, we'll see an emergence of models that integrate some of the multimodal capabilities of some of the recent Gen AI advancements with some of the traditional like Bayesian inference techniques that we have from classical AI. And then on the education design side, kind of getting at Sharik's point, I think that there are a lot of cases where we're really designing for a small population. We think, oh, adaptive learning is going to solve everything. But the reality is that there are many life circumstances that students bring to their learning that may not be addressed by what happens on the computer. Getting them in front of this computer screen in the first place, it can be a significant challenge. Solving things like logistical problems, financial barriers to access to education. There are ways that AI can help with those, but it's not as simple as let's build more pedagogy or better lessons. It may be let's solve these deep logistical or institutional challenges to access and scalability of education. I think right now that's an underexplored area at the intersection of AI and education.
Indeed. I think Dilip would like to add something as well. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. To build on what Sam was saying, I think what we're going to see here is really evolution of what's called as an agentic framework or AI agents. I think that's becoming a bit of a sort of upcoming technology that is will take some time. But where I'm going with that is that you could see a chain of agents being built together that is targeted towards the student, that as that student gets onboarded or joins the institution, can partner with them, figure out what their goals are, what their financial situation is, what they need in terms of achieving that goal, like the career, building out their education plan, helping them with their financial payments and financial institutions. So, like a complete, uh, these are all individual agents. So, what that means now is you also have a potential for building out departmental and specific LLMs that are tailored to each of these specific use cases and put together into a single sort of your experience with one place, like a conversational experience. And that's something is to me is going to be very interesting if we can put something like that together that can solve for a lot of the things that students face when they are within an educational environment. Everything from figuring out what courses they need to take in order to get their degree to how they're going to pay and how they're going to get to finish that course, so because of everything else that's going on in their life.
Yes, I think I would like to add one point to that. I think a very common prompt which I started using once, we got hold of ChatGPT is define me the roadmap for doing something. Now, sometimes I feel people generally have the knowledge of something, but they struggle that how do I start and where does this end? What is my end goal that I'm chasing? And I think this particular prompt, which I often use myself as well, that gives me a very clear direction that this is the task and this is how I have to process it, and this is my roadmap. I start from here and I end it, and that gives me satisfaction also that hey, I've done that in the right way,
Right.
following a process, and achieve my end goal as well. So I think that is the beauty of it, conversational AI, to be precise. Yes, Farida would like to add something.
Not only that, today, many of the students often wonder as to what do I want to do? Or,
Hmm.
where does my
Hmm.
inclination lie?
Hmm.
Even in those cases, any time of the day, any random thought, anything that comes into their mind, they just keep adding it into this model and then
Hmm.
eventually evaluate or do an analysis maybe over a period of 3 months or 4 months and see, based on their thoughts, the analysis which will actually guide them towards where their inclination lies. So the same thing if I'm going maybe to a counselor, at that time I may not be able to share everything which I have thought about, or maybe there the person would mainly evaluate uh, on a basis of certain things or my academics. So I
Hmm.
think in that way also, if AI is trained or used in that effective way, it can definitely be a lot more powerful, and it can really do wonders.
That is true. That is wonderful. Yeah, you are right actually. In the case of, if I talk about the use case of seeking advice, right? I think AI also contributes heavily on that, and it can also perform some evaluations for us as well. Like, just take a quick test that evaluate me based on my current knowledge if I am fit for, let's say, product management, for example. So this particular, the initial just a impromptu evaluation is something which we earlier used to seek some senior, that senior has to be available. Then we have to, chase that person that what do you think? And that can be a biased answer as well. So yes, you're absolutely right on that.
And I would like to add something. I feel like thanks to AI, our students feel less lost and less alone because they have a key of solution. Even if they don't find it right away by a question, they find a way to process their ideas and the way to, even if the teacher is not available, they know how to they know themselves, so they know how to introduce their question and how to create a new way to learn according to their function and how do they learn.
Right. So thank you so much to everyone for such an engaging and energetic communication on our first segment, which was personalized learning. We explored so many dimensions, so many points we covered. Thank you so much for all of your insights. Now that we make the transition to our next segment, that is, we are going to explore the area of AI in grading and assessments, right? So for my first question, I would like to invite Sam. Uh, Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. So I have a question for you, and I would like to know your insight. What do you think? In what ways can AI assist teachers in the grading process without completely replacing their professional judgment as well? What is your take on it?
Yeah, so I think that the intersection of AI and assessment is a really interesting one. And to Ed's earlier point, there is a little bit of a tension between exploring doing things better versus doing better things. So on the
Hmm.
doing things better side, there's a lot that we can do to streamline or automate particularly formative or low stakes assessments. Some things that I've seen that have been really exciting have been generation of practice questions, doing automatic rubric-based grading of written artifacts,
Hmm.
and also doing kind of commentary and feedback notes drafted based on some key points. So for a instructor who doesn't normally have the time to give highly detailed feedback, they can give a general comment, say, to a system and have it generate specific items from the student's text that exhibited the thing that the instructor is commenting on. That kind of detailed feedback can be time intensive for an instructor, and so there's a lot of opportunity to speed up and scale the instructor's efforts so they can give more feedback and faster feedback to their students. There's even a space for fully automated solutions where pre-constructed rubrics can provide feedback immediately to students based on various responses. On the doing better things side, I think there's a lot of opportunity to change the modalities of assessment. We can probably do away with multiple choice questions and instead do automatic binning of free form responses from students. There's some really nice benefits of that from a testing point of view in that we're much less likely to leak the answer based on the responses that we've made possible for the student. It's also possible for us to ask more open-ended questions where we're kind of secretly checking if they noticed something without giving away that that's what we're asking about. Finally, I think there's a really exciting opportunity for dialogue-based assessment. So using the chat-based functionality of large language models, there's an opportunity for the model to ask follow-up questions, which is not something we have with a traditional exam,
Hmm.
and it's very difficult for a teacher to scale. Doing oral exams used to be the standard in graduate schools and often still is, like a dissertation or thesis defense. But the challenge is that you can't do that for every assignment. With
Hmm.
large language models, we potentially could.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering wonderfully. Anybody would like to add anything? Yeah, Sharik, please go ahead.
Absolutely. I love this topic a lot. And I talk to dozens of college instructors every week, and their biggest pain point is grading takes too long, right?
Hmm.
And we're always balancing doing better things versus doing things better. And I think that's a great concept, and I think I'm going to use it a lot. But um I really believe that when it comes to equity, I do understand that AI is biased, but it opens the door for less subjective and more objective grading, and it encourages teachers to put a more objective lens on their grading criteria and rubric. And as long as that we can do that, we should be able to make things a lot more fair for the students, more clear for the students, and take the subjectiveness out of grading, which personally I feel is uh does get unfair at some points for the students. Um, so I just thought that's really, really exciting, and it's an exciting time for that.
Indeed. I think Trisha would like to add something as well.
Yeah, I loved everything you just said. Sharik, thank you so much. And I just was going to add a couple of stats to your point about college grade scope, reduced grading time by 70% for teachers. And that's incredible, right? That gives them, that great theme that's come out of all of this, time to do better things. And then in terms of K-12 education, Bill and Melinda Gates said that AI assisted grading can reduce grading by 60%. So again, just, really compelling statistics, I think, in terms of sharing how
Yeah,
AI grading assessments.
absolutely. I think that is a really exciting time. The statistics shows that, we can, I think, like the teachers are currently overburdened. Like Sharik added that, they're heavily involved in the grading process. If they have a, virtual assistant who's always there to less burden them, I think that would be wonderful. Thank you so much everyone for adding points to the question I raised to Sam originally. And for my next question, I would like to invite Sharik once again. So continuing the discussion we are doing, I have another question. That is, AI in grading is often, correlated with MCQ questions, right? Multiple choice questions. What do you think? How can AI be used to assess more complex forms of student work, like essays or projects, which requires a human effort to go through multiple types of answers and then give a proper evaluation? So, what is your take on it?
I love that question, and we're already doing that with Advisor AI. So I've kind of had to live it. We started with multiple choice questions, but then
Hmm.
just as Sam said, right, with multiple choice questions, we risk giving away the answer. We risk confusing the student at some points as well, and we really quickly evolved into being able to not just generate short answer questions, but then also generate expected learning outcomes from those questions, and then use those learning outcomes to generate a rubric as to how we should grade those short answer questions. So
Hmm.
I think multiple choice questions are a great way to assess the student and give them a low stress assessment for them to just be able to see how well they're doing. But in order for us as instructors to see how well the students are doing at a um, more cohesive level, if you will, I think using short answer questions are going to be a significantly better for that. And last thing I'll add is that I think I mentioned this before, but the best way to set up AI-based grading is to create objective, non-subjective rubrics that will be used to grade projects, um, assignments, short answer questions, essays, and so on and so forth.
Indeed. I think Edward would like to add something as well.
Yeah, so that got me thinking about Eleanor Duckworth, who was one of the last students of Piaget.
Hmm.
And she summarized his work based in the education space as given enough time, motivation, and practice with feedback. Just about anybody can learn just about anything to a great extent. But in our current education system in the United States and globally, as others have mentioned, one of the biggest challenges is time. It's the idea of giving that feedback. And so, when thinking about putting together an artifact and asking for feedback as a professional writer and consultant. And someone who writes a lot of proposals, very often, I will do the writing, I'll do the hard work. But then look at the evaluation criteria, I will ask one of the large language models to give me feedback and say, where is this strong and where is it weak? I think what is so important for all of us in the conversation to keep front and center, though, is that in order to be at a level where you can use the tool fully, you have to have done the hard work first. You can't say, here's the criteria, write me an essay, write me a proposal. Bad things happen, really bad things. However, as has been brought up a few times now, when there is a true symbiotic relationship and partnership, allowing the technology to do what it does best and allowing humans to do what they do best, we can imagine the person plus, the person who's able to do more with the technology than they're capable of doing on their own, either, regardless of whose background or just knowledge they have.
Yes, that's a very interesting insight. I think nowadays, just to add a point, I have seen a lot of people just writing a prompt that, hey, create a proposal for me on this topic, and they expect a high impact outcome out of it, which is funny. So I said that let's not waste our cognitive abilities. Let's utilize that, and let's utilize it to utilize AI to go beyond what we could produce on just using our effort. That is the goal. Absolutely. And I think, yeah, Dilip would like to add in.
Yeah, so from going back to the question around assessments, one thing that we can think about is being multimodal responses, right? In terms of you can still give an assessment, you could respond back in as a text or through voice or through a picture. And that flexibility allows the student to sort of be confident in their response because people who have dyslexia can struggle typing out an answer on computer versus speaking it out. And that from capability can be significant in terms of improving the experience for the student as well.
Yes. So, on that note, Dilip, I have a question for you. So,
Okay.
what is your take? What are the ethical considerations which are, associated with using AI for grading, particularly in terms of transparency and accountability? What is your point of view on this?
And so, I mean, we talked a little bit about it already in terms of what bias can do to the models, and the grading falls into that, right? Because the bias is both upstream, when the models were built, as well as downstream as it's learning throughout. It can continuously be biased around certain answers and certain responses. So, what needs to happen here is that it absolutely needs to be sort of monitored and made like transparently monitored and kept guardrails to be built around all of these things so that it doesn't detract and go offline, right? And that has becomes a bigger challenge, and we've seen that across not just education field but in other areas as well that we do work with our clients with, in that that has been one of the biggest struggle. How do you bring in transparency into this? So what we've done with other companies is to build out some sort of a governance model. And that is an important part of how do we deliver AI across and leverage AI across all the different solutions. So it's a double-edged sword, and it is a important thing that we need to address in this rollout of AI across
Definitely.
education, especially.
Indeed. On that note, Edward, I have a follow-up question to that. What do you see as the future of AI in assessments? What is your take that how the student evaluation moving forward will evolve? What is your vision for it?
Yeah, well, so a few thoughts. Um, the first thing that I'm reminded of is Albert Bandura, who is the father of social psychology, which suggests, if you take all of his work and distill it down into two questions, gets at the notion of if you want to maximize the likelihood that somebody will be changed, a behavior is changed, somebody is going to do something different, They have to answer these next two questions in the affirmative. Do I believe I can do it? And do I value it? And if the answer is yes to both, then you maximize the likelihood that something will happen. If you answer no on either, then you may get the outcome that you desire, but it's not as good as it could be. And if you answer no on both, you're just doomed. So when it comes to assessment in AI, if I'm a young person and I'm sitting in front of a computer, I'm engaging with a robot, I'm talking with a voice-based AI around some kind of assessment, then I think the first thing that is most important is asking Bender's questions. Do I believe that I can demonstrate what I know and I'm able to do through this modality? And do I believe in the scores that it represents? Does it fully capture me? I think that that's one extreme. Then the other extreme, at least in the United States, has to do with accountability. The idea that we want to make sure that students are performing at a particular level of proficiency at different age bands or grade levels and so forth. And that is the macro question. Right now, multiple choice and similar techniques are based on techniques that are cost effective. But if we look at, for example, the United States National Assessment of Education Progress, that's not every kid sits for every test every year. It's a statistical sample that's intended to minimize the burden on young people. So as I think about the future, I think about the micro, which is the individual who is performing the test and engaging in the test and the things that they're wrestling with, but then also the macro. What is it that we need to do in order to determine that our students in general at the high level are performing at a level that we believe they need to be performing at, and not overburdening each child to demonstrate what they can do in every grade level each year?
True. Yes, Farida, you have raised your hand.
So I just wanted to add my viewpoint. Though I'm very much for using AI in education and the entire training model, when it comes to using AI in the grading system, sometimes there are question marks which are left, because when it comes to a human who's evaluating the answers, there's also that human touch. Even if you talk about maybe an oral examination or a viva, or where you're using the language model, to assess a student, sometimes it may be possible that a student is undergoing certain kind of emotions, the stress or something, which I believe a machine will not be able to capture, because after all, it's just running on an algorithm. When you have that human in front of you, you understand. Sometimes you understand the situation, sometimes, So I think on that level, maybe develop some kind of an examination system where the evaluation should be based in such a way that a lot of things could be considered MCQs for that matter. I think that is the simplest way. But when it comes to more subjective answers, where a human touch is required, where thoughts are very important, where the flow, the way you speak is important, I think there a human touch, somehow this is what I feel, is not replaceable.
Understood. I mean, I think just to add a point, you are talking about on a emotional ground. Like, let's say there are, like you give an example. Let's say the student is under stress or is going through some personal turmoil, because of which the performance was not up to the mark. That maybe that person has the capability, but
Yeah.
at the moment they're not performing. That doesn't mean they will never perform in the future. Definitely.
And it happens, sometimes in the examination, we've seen students who just freak out maybe at the last moment due to something's happened. So when there's a human involved, we can pacify and we can make them comfortable. A machine, after all, will not do this. So I think that is one area where there's still, I think, that needs to be worked upon.
Understood. And while Sam and Dilip, you add points, there is a question from the audience also, so you can blend your answers with it. The more or less goes into the same direction. That how does AI facilitate the long-term tracking of students' progress over time? So, Sam, we can start with you. So we can address the audience question as well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to first of all say I really appreciate Farida's points about students often are bringing an emotional context to learning,
Mm.
and current systems are not well suited to capturing that in the short term or in the long term. And so I think my answer to this next question is really about co-design with the rest of the educational ecosystem. There's information that in-person instructors, that mentors and even peers can provide that are really difficult to capture automatically. And I think there's, to Farida's point again, there's a level of nuance. Like we have emotion detectors, but they tend to be designed for the sort of overly expressed emotions and don't
Yes.
account for the context of individuals. People develop communicational habits that are not universal, and it's easy to think that we can interpret the emotions of a stranger when actually we're just never receiving any evidence to the contrary. So to this point of how does AI improve assessment over time? I think one piece is this co-design where we enable the collection and tracking of information that is useful to humans in making future judgments and also ingest some of their own insights in terms of the context for individual events. On the second side, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for doing larger scale statistical modeling over time. One of the things we do very poorly as humans is think about other people forgetting things. And
Mm.
as an instructor, it's almost impossible for me to account for the fact that, in a classroom of 30 or in a university setting up to several hundred, some of them may remember something that they knew a week prior, and some of them may have forgotten. So there's a big opportunity for adaptive assessment over time, where individual students are receiving customized questions to track not just what they know in general, but what they know at that moment in time. And then we can build predictive models that help us to identify, for example, which topics would be most helpful for an instructor to address in a large group setting.
Yes. Yes, I think Dilip would like to add as well.
Yeah. So, and sort of in alignment with Sam and Farida, one thing that I want to make a point is we cannot forget the human in this, both for the student as well as the teacher, because those two key elements, without that, none of this thing works. And AI is just another tool, like a software tool for whatever else we've been using it from, the mobile phone to the internet, etc. So the human aspects of it are the most important thing, not just for assessments, and also for the training part of it. Like we talked throughout, is that students' emotional state, students' current environment, it can impact their ability to learn. And similarly, teachers' ability to teach as well, because they have their own lives outside of work
Mm.
that can come into play. And that's one piece that we should not forget about. And I feel like a lot of the things that AI has promised and the hype that has come around it is that, oh, you can replace that with humans with that. And
Mm.
that's a wrong message to take away from AI. That really, it should be a tool that we use like any other tool and help everybody to sort of do better and learn faster and be a better human. To answer the audience question, I think as we had mentioned earlier, and I see Edward has pasted a link in the chat on that, is that there are tools out there that can help you, or there will be tools out there like Duolingo or for Axios that Edward's mentioned that allow people to track progress throughout their lifetime. And this is where I think education model also needs to flip a little bit in terms of education as a ongoing lifelong learning rather than a point in time or a span of time learning and then you move on to the rest of the life, because in the new world we will need to people to sort of pick up new skills as things evolve, and things will start evolving much faster. So you cannot expect them to learn something in say 4 to 6 or 8 years time and then take that for the rest of their life.
Mm. Indeed. All right. So I think we have explored new horizons on AI in grading and assessments. That's for sure. And thank you, panel, for showing so much of enthusiasm that everyone is raising their hands and adding points left, right, center. That's what I can say. On that note, let's transition to our final segment. That is, how do we prepare our students for our AI-driven future? Let us give some insights from this roundtable. Whoever is listening, any student, if they are listening, they can get some really practical insights so that they can actually apply it and prepare themselves for our AI-driven future, which is evident to come, as we know. So on that note, I would like to ask my first question to Trisha. Once again, I will loop you in. So my question to you is, what is your take? What do you like? What is your meaning that students should be AI literate in today's day? And why do you think it is so important that they need to integrate AI literacy into the curriculum as well? Like, generally students are going to schools, colleges, or even learning from some training institutes. How important this is to be added into that curriculum as well?
So yes, it's incredibly important. The World Economic Forum said 85 million jobs will be displaced by AI by 2025. I don't know, but the encouraging part of that is that 97 million new roles will also emerge. And so when I'm speaking to young adults and adults that are going through the fear and concern about the future of jobs, I think that stat's incredibly important because all is not lost. We are not actually going to lose our jobs to AI, but we need to upskill, right? So that's on the more adult level. With that stat in mind, we know those numbers are only going to continue to grow. And so as we take our K-12 students and educate them, bringing AI into classrooms, not only as, assessment tools and segregating, or not segregating, I'm sorry, performing learning for adaptabilities, we actually just need to teach kids how the AI tools work and how they can master them and to think critically, so that they can interact with what AI is going to continue to do and bring to our society. And so I think it's a multi response, but nonetheless, it is absolutely a necessary piece of going forward into the world.
Thank you so much for your statistical and insightful answer. On that note, I would like to ask Jen a question as well. So, of course, you can elaborate to what Trisha said. And along with that, I would like to blend in another question, which I've been receiving from my, fellow mates who are still in the learning stage, right? So, what specific skills should we be teaching students today to prepare them for a future when AI plays a central role in various industries? Like Trisha said already, that industries will adopt a lot of AI tools. In fact, we had a discussion in our previous conversations as well. So, what is your take on it? That what are the specific skills that definitely we should teach our students at the moment?
Actually, I'm facing some elements in enterprise. More and more director and entrepreneurs and employees have a virtual assistant. So I would like to invite students to create actually their virtual assistant in order to be more into innovation and also more into creativity, because as we are facing and acting as an AI orchestra, we are more into no limits in our creation and conception. And I feel like we are living actually a generation impact, because we are the generation that have lived without internet, with internet, and with AI now. And we are going to face from students that already have AI in their hands. So we need to educate them that there was a past, and they will be faced with adults that have no idea of how AI works. So they should know how to simplify the concept about talking to people that doesn't know anything about AI. And also we need to, so actually in my academy, I have 7 models, and I have created these models in order to help the same issue that we already meet in enterprise. And these 7 models help people to increase how to do communication, how to do selling, how to do digital presence. So we need to help students to understand how AI can participate to their presence and their impact and influence, I think.
Thank you so much. And I think Dilip and Farida has raised their hand. So Dilip, you can go ahead.
Sure, thanks. To add to what Jen said, I think the biggest lesson that students need to keep in mind is it's still, and I'll go back to this, is that it's still about human to human communication. These are all things, technologies that help us improve some of that. And so the skills that still needed for human to human communication, empathy, soft skills around how you talk, communicate with each other, how do you sort of lead a team, all those are still an important skill set to have for a student, which in order to really build out their career and grow, have a successful, have a good life. On they can leverage AI to sort of enhance those skills and build out those skills. But just to be on the AI literacy side, they definitely would want to think about it as how can I understand enough of this technology that I know how to apply it in other aspects of my life. And from there, just that's the level of literacy I would expect students to gain out of AI, not necessarily to, not everyone wants to build those models and learn programming. They can, however, learn how to use it and become a successful person.
Yes.
And whatever
Farida,
and however they define success for themselves.
right. Yes, Farida, you can also go ahead. Thank you so much, Dilip, for adding your point.
So one thing that I want to highlight here is that we need to train our students to use AI in a very responsible way. Okay, we have to train them that use AI to empower yourselves, not let AI, empower itself over you. For example, you just mentioned, let's say I have to make a presentation. I just can't go to an AI site and type, make a presentation and so on, so topic. Because what it will give you is not my thoughts. Those things or that generated presentation is based on some material which it has just fetched from somewhere, some biased something. AI has to be used to give a direction to their thoughts. So this is something which even I always, when I speak to my son or even, my students, I always tell them, use AI, but use it to give a direction to your thoughts. It should be your thoughts. Put your thoughts across. Ask it to streamline it for you. So when you give it a very open-ended question, the answers that you're getting are not accurate. But when you give a close-ended question where you are listing down what exactly are you thinking about, what are your suggestions, and then you want it to, summarize it for you or, glorify it for you, that's when it will have that human touch. That's when it will not look as a machine generated text or a machine generated presentation, because you have put in your thoughts, you've made that effort, and you are just using that tool to help you streamline it. So I think that is very important. That is something we need to teach our students, that use it, but you have to use it responsibly. That I think that is something which is of utmost importance.
Thank you so much, Farida. And I think on that note, I had my question as well. That how should we approach teaching students about the ethical considerations and potential societal impacts of AI? If I talk about on the education standpoint.
So if you talk about ethical, I think my answer just indicated that, wherein if it's just a copy paste as an educator, as Dilip also said, that human touch will never go away. So for those who've been in the education industry for so long, the moment we see that, we are able to know whether this is from the student or this is from some tool, because we know our students in and out, we know their capabilities. So that is, of course, ethical. And of course, those results are not trustworthy. And even if you talk about society at large, sometimes, it leads students in the wrong way, because let me give you an example. University students, I meet many university students, I talk to them, they have assignments, they have projects. Now, generally what happens at university levels is they don't have, or they don't get that much help from professors, who are there with them to help them. And where do they go to? They go to ChatGPT, they go to these AI tools, they generate the code, they submit the assignment, they are graded. At the end of it, or after they complete their course, where do they still stand? Are they at, because the focus is, I want to complete this, I want to get my grading done. Where is the learning out of it? And even if you want them to learn, you want them to spend time on it, somehow the education system in many universities is such that the focus is just on completing those assignments, complete them, get them graded, done with. Very little of actual learning which is happening. So we need to use AI for that deep learning, personalized adaptive learning, rather than using it as a tool to just copy paste stuff and get things done with. So I think that is where we have to put that barrier or put that line as to where we are using AI in education.
So
I
true.
have also forgot on the other side, above Trisha and Farida's talk, we need to invite our children to create a new framework about ethic AI, because AI is going to be more and more present, and it's going to impact our human condition. And so we need to emphasize how we can build AI for best life, best friend. It's a best friend, but it's a virtual best friend. So we need to insist that AI is still best friend. Actually, there is a study that they have created an AI that is its purpose is to be a humanoid that fall down, and so many people have empathy according to AI. So we need to be careful, because we need to be actually to be sensitive that AI is virtual and not something that we need to have empathy for. So
So true. Yes, Edward, you would like to add something?
Yeah, sure. So I added into the chat a blog that I had prepared for Duolingo recently, and it explores the idea of AI as an amplifier, and the idea that it can be something that helps to replicate vicious cycles where those who don't have even less, whether that be mental, cognitive, social capital resources, or it can be a force for perpetuating virtuous cycles. In other words, allowing each individual, each group, each community, each society to become its best self. However, that means carefully monitoring and being thoughtful and reflective on the various aspects of the cycle of AI and its integration into education, whether it be thinking about, again, that algorithm and how it's made, what happens when it goes out into the world and is interpreted and used by teachers and educators and administrators and others, and how do those micro behaviors accrue over time to form and shape life outcomes, which in turn perpetuates generations of opportunity or also oppression.
Understood. On that note, since we are almost heading towards the end of our session, so I would like to take a audience question quickly, and I believe it's an interesting question. So audience is asking, in what ways can AI in education encourage innovation and creativity among students. And I think just to add a point, tools like Sora.ai, which is of course still in the beta stage, we do not have access to it, and Dolly, and there are several image generating tools as well, in a way have generated unimaginable things, which was very difficult in the earlier or a traditional approach. Why? Because you have to have certain tools like painters, for example, right? All the famous painters who took years to build something. Now it can be done in a fingertip. Whatever imagination I have doesn't need to be on a canvas. It can be a digital canvas with the help of a prompt. So, Edward, what would be your take on this question from the audience?
And I'm reminded of a book that came out a couple of years ago called Me
Hmm.
Plus Plus. And in it, the author described the notion of the digital nomad.
Hmm.
So we're no longer tethered to particular geographies in order to engage with our virtual world. However, I think that opportunity is a double-edged sword.
Hmm.
A friend of mine, Christina Rosen, has a book coming out very soon that talks about how social media, AI, and so forth is really causing humans to lose some of our connectedness with each other, with our planet, with our relationships, and so forth. So I think that as we think about the future, it's important that we remember what we value most. What does it mean to be a human? What
Hmm.
does it value? What is good and what is beautiful and what is right? To use the tools to help not only do things faster and more efficiently, but also to do them better and to strike a balance so that we're able to tackle some of the grand challenges facing humanity over the next 20, 30 years and beyond.
Hmm. Indeed. And also, yes, Farida, please go ahead.
So, talking about innovation in education, two things that I can think about. Number one is when it comes to, learning courses, somewhere, even today, we have some popular courses which are available. But then, just, not from an academic point of view, but just for maybe better understanding or just for my self love, if I want to learn things which are not available in the form of courses or where we don't have proper instructors. So maybe a platform which can be designed where a student can customize their own learning experiences, what
Hmm.
subjects they are interested in. Maybe I'm interested in maths, but only a very small topic in maths. So I
Yes.
can curate my learning in that way. I don't have to go through the entire course. I can do a deep understanding only in trigonometry or maybe only in factorial. So that is, I think, one area where we can definitely use AI in education. The second thing that because we are technology consultants and we already have proposed these solutions in certain sectors
Hmm.
where using augmented reality or virtual reality in learning. So today if I'm teaching let's say students in a classroom about let us say about Mohenjo-daro or any such ancient place, I think it would be wonderful if I can give them a virtual tour of that
Hmm.
particular
Hmm.
space. Or if I'm teaching them about science, this I'd seen, I think one of the companies who had come in one of, I think, Shark Tank, that I'd
Hmm.
seen them where they were using augmented reality to explain concepts about science. So
Hmm.
they demonstrated as to how we do not hear in vacuum. So what actually happens when students see that, they get a better understanding. So I think augmented reality or virtual reality is one area where definitely AI can be used when students will actually be able to see what the concept is and explore that. The level of understanding would be deep rooted. So these two areas, I see there's a lot of potential of AI and education coming along and getting this industry ahead leaps and bounds.
Thank you so much. And I think Dilip has raised his hand. Yeah, please go
So
ahead.
to add to that, one more area that I feel like education needs to go to, innovation in education can help, is really what we've been talking a little bit about, is just in time learning. So if I need some new skill so to do the next job that I'm taking on, or I need to learn quickly about a certain client's industry that I'm trying to support, don't have time to sort of go do the research. This is where AI can help me get up to speed. And I'll give you an example. Recently, I had to suddenly learn quickly about gas leaks in shipping industry. I have no background in shipping. I have no background in gas, but I can quickly learn that through a chat GPT or a a perplexity AI module and research it enough that I understand what it's all about and ask the right questions. And that's where I think those are the type of innovations that we can do with allowing these students to be curious about what is happening around them and how to solve what are the challenges that people are running into, and then leverage AI to sort of come up with ideas on solving those.
Yes. And Jen, while you add your point to what is discussed, so I was expecting this question from the audience actually. So students are curious to know something which we in a way touch base, but I think audience wants to know more about it, is that how should the education system prepare students for the impact of AI on job markets and potential job displacement? So once you add that, you can, if you can blend that answer as well.
Um, Actually, I have students in my company because I'm building a startup in building AI companion. And I'm facing new question about how prompt engineering is involved in their jobs. And I feel like, as Trisha told, there is so many tools as Microsoft, Figma AI, Adobe Fireflies, etc., that already aimed AI. So I feel like everyone is going into it. So we need to see how we can find a sparing time between when we are going to use AI and when we are not, in order to create a more sensitive and more creativity in how we involved in projects, I think.
Thank you so much for adding your point and
And the last
addressing.
thing I would say, we have only one life, and we are winning so many times thanks to AI. So we need to help our students how to create more efficiency, more productivity, and more currency and more valorization of their jobs in companies, because we are going to be faced to new challenge and we need to prepare them from it.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, okay. So Trisha is dropping off. Okay, no issues. And thank you so much, Jen, for adding your insights and addressing the burning question from the audience, actually. And on that note, Sam, I have a question for you, which would bring us to the end of the session, actually, which is more or less related to the career side of the things only. That how can AI be used to guide students in their career development and help them identify potential career paths? So if you can just summarize that for the audience as well.
Yeah, so I'll talk first of all why I think this is a harder problem than we often realize, and then some of the exciting things I've seen developing. So one of the challenges is that our economic value often comes from specialization in trade, right? Going back to Adam Smith. And as a consequence of that, a lot of solutions for kind of universal education, universal career advising often miss the mark. We end up over-indexing on things that are common and missing out on a lot of specialty roles that just aren't large enough for us to have a designated program for them. So when it comes to like individual career advising, college counselors struggle with this all the time, right? Like a student comes in and, one student out of I don't know what the statistics would be, but like maybe 100,000 or less could make it as a professional musician, but you have 15 music majors every year. How do you tell 14 of them they should study something else or they should go into a different career? So I think, there's this challenge where like as humans, we are not always plugged in to the shifting labor market and the demand for new jobs. I also think it's very difficult to predict the impact of new technologies or the likely success of entrepreneurship in different fields. There are gold rushes every time some new technology is invented, and it's difficult to know in advance, how do we direct students? So to Jen's point, I think some of the solution is we make students' careers more adaptive, right? We teach them things that they can apply in a new world, which we may not have perfect knowledge of. And then another piece is bringing the statistical information about there's a lot more demand now for people with the skills to develop and work with AI models, for example, than there used to be. There's a lot of demand in engineering, like that's constantly under indexed. In the US, we have large healthcare shortages. Having more of that statistical information made available to students will have a big impact. I think on the flip side, that human touch is difficult, in terms of how do we help students to find maybe a calling and something they can find purpose in. Maybe it's hard for an automated system to do, particularly when, to Farida's earlier point, there's a lot of context that these systems might miss. So one of the things I've seen that's really exciting in this direction is actually a startup called Go Pursue that does matching between high school students and internships in community companies. And there's this kind of direct correspondence between the roles that are available and the students that are available. And there's this matching that's happening in terms of finding mentors. And it doesn't always have to be the thing that the student does for the rest of their career, but it does give them early access and exposure to something that they might be considering. And I think this integration of, there's AI advising, there are people involved, but then there's also this real world experience. That's this really amazing combination for helping to set students up for success in careers.
I think Jen would like to add something.
Yes, above what says Sam, I think that student will have a new challenge of how to explore the different types of intelligence, so emotional intelligence, relation intelligence, etc. So I feel like a lot of soft skills are going to be more important in the future than before, because we were exploring technical things and functional things, and now we are going to further how human are functioning in order to create, because AI, first of all, was created in order to replicate human behavior. So we need to understand how far are we going to, and how are we limiting the roles of AI.
Right. So I think we have, thank you so much everyone for giving your valuable insights and knowledge and addressing all the audience questions as well, and giving your diverse experiences throughout the session. Thanks to all the speakers. Just to summarize some key takeaways which I could gather throughout the session, that although AI in education is evident, that is going to happen, and that will of course change the way we perceive education currently in terms of systems and the way we regularly proceed with learning in general. However, the human factor will always be there in the education context. Like I think we discussed with Farida about the mental state of a student when they're going for an evaluation, let's say, or grading, gauging a potential of somebody, not just based on a test on a very rational perspective, right? So human touch will always be there. Having said that, AI on the flip side will actually increase, like we discussed, like Jen also mentioned, and I think Sam also mentioned, that time would be something where we have only one life, right? So students will get some time to go beyond doing their assignments, which anyway will not materialize so much if they just copy and paste it, right? So I think the focus would be more on, rather than factual learning, or more on the conceptual understanding. I think that will be increased with a limited span. There will always be a person to reach out to. So AI will always be that person they can always reach out to, request for some roadmaps if in general, and eventually create something which will blow everybody's mind. I think these are some of the key takeaways. Any final thoughts anybody would like to add before we end the session? Farida, you can add, Jen and Sam, anybody. Any final thoughts?
Just it was a rich exchange, so thank you for the invitation. And I'm so happy to meet so many experts in our domain.
Thank you so much. Farida, you would like to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Invesha, and your entire team for the invite. I think it was a lovely experience talking to everybody on the panel. Everybody had amazing viewpoints. And as you correctly summarized, yes, AI is here to stay. It is going to be there. That's evident. But of course, the human touch is something which will never be replaced. So thank you so much for this wonderful experience today.
And lastly, Sam. Yeah.
Yeah, just thank you so much. This has been a real joy. I think the questions were well chosen and the panelists have been great to hear from. I've definitely learned some things today.
Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure talking to all of you. I have gained so many horizons, which I, didn't had earlier this session. So thank you so much. Have a good day. And we will definitely connect with all of you on LinkedIn and stay in touch, discuss more on this. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so much. Have a nice
Bye,
day.
everyone.
Bye.